everyone and welcome back to my channel. Now today is going to be a little bit of a different video. At the start of the year I decided that on my channel, as well as the vlogs and the beauty and lifestyle content that I create, I wanted to go down a slightly different path, raise an awareness for certain causes and various different events, I guess you could say. And today is one of those videos. If you can hear any rustling, it's because I've got some facts and figures, because statistics and things, numbers in general, are just not my thing. I just cannot remember them. So if you can hear any rustling, it's just in case I refer back to any of this. This week marks Cervical Cancer Prevention Week. I'm supporting Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust in its call to get towards a future where cervical cancer is a thing of the past. The charity is launching a campaign to end cervical cancer in the UK. Cervical cancer is the fourth most common cancer in women globally. Every day in the UK there are 9 new diagnoses and 2 women will lose their lives. In 2020, the World Health Organization launched a global campaign for action to eliminate cervical cancer. For the first time ever, the world has committed to eliminating a cancer. HPV vaccination and cervical screening can help prevent and one day end cervical cancer. However, uptake has been falling in many parts of the country. Growing up, I remember watching Big Brother, as I'm sure so many others did, and like so many others, just adored Jade Goody. She was the life and soul of the party, both in the house and in anything else she did. And yeah, I remember some of the bad things that happened with Big Brother, but I remember reading on the news that she'd been removed from the Indian version of Big Brother because of a cancer diagnosis, which completely shocked me, as I think it did the world in a way, or at least the country, because she was so young. And to me that was one of the first major cancer stories from a celebrity that was so young to reach the news, really. And yeah, I remember closely following her story, from the documentaries she did, the interviews she did, any magazine that she was in I would read, just to see how she was doing more than anything, because obviously this was a time when social media was still very much in its infancy. I remember the news that she had terminal cancer, which, considering how young she was and how in a way close to my age she was pretty shocking, to be fair. And then subsequently even when she passed away, I think it hit a lot of people, because when you're younger you kind of feel a bit like these things aren't going to happen to you, or it's a long way off. You know, firstly you never think it's going to happen to you, and secondly, especially not this young, you always think of it happening 50 plus kind of thing, not 20s and 30s. And I think the scary thing is, I mean, I'm 28, 29 this year, and Jade passed away when she was 27, so I'm already older than what she was when she obviously was getting her smear test done, and had this awful news, and then had to go through treatment, and then subsequently lost her life from the disease. And I just can't imagine. To me, like, a lot of the time I still feel the same as I did when I was 18, and I know a lot of you do as well. So to feel like that is a part of your life at that stage, like, I just can't get my head around it. And I remember Jade passing away. I was still in secondary school at the time, but I remember her passing away, and then shortly afterwards at school we had the letters come through to say about the HPV vaccine, which I mean, I hate needles, I'm not gonna lie, I hate needles, but I always knew that I would go for the vaccine, so I had my course of it. I then had to wait several years to be able to have a smear test. I do think they need to dramatically reduce that age of when you can get a smear test, because I have been sexually active from a teenager, and yeah, I had to wait for a smear test until I was 25, which, when you think Jade passed away from cancer at the age of 27, it can and does happen to younger people. And yeah, I really think they need to lower that age so much. But that is another campaign that is still very much ongoing. I remember reading last year that Jade's mum Jackie had gone to the papers and said that she was devastated that the number of people taking up their offer of the smear test had reduced dramatically, and as a result there were more women dying from cervical cancer because they couldn't get the treatment in time. There was no early diagnosis because they just lived their life as usual. And that's quite a scary thought, to be fair, because Jade left such a legacy. She campaigned right up until her death, and she brought out her book, or her mum brought out her book once she'd passed away, very much detailing what she'd gone through and her thought processes along the way, with a beautiful ending, which I can still remember clearly now. It's like, even now I can still remember it, and it still makes me well up in a way that somebody so young passed away like that. But yeah, by people not taking up their invitation of a smear test, they're just not getting that advanced warning, that early diagnosis, and unfortunately in a lot of cases that means that it's just too late. And I remember always being told that preventative was so much better than a cure, and it's true, and there are things out there, there are resources and things that can be done. And I know it is a scary, it can be scary. I remember feeling really nervous for my first smear, more so because I'd never had anything done like that, and back when I had my first smear it wasn't really talked about, and I think that is a major downfall, which partly is why I'm doing this story time, if you like, today, but also I think it's because other YouTubers such as Zoe Serg, Brogan Take, they've all spoken about their experiences since, because they're similar ages to me, and they possibly, I can't quite remember, I have watched both videos but I can't quite remember, but I'd imagine their first smear test they probably felt very much the same as I did, because it was very much not talked about, it was brushed under the carpet. You had your letter, you either went or you didn't, and people are now deciding to speak about it, which I think is just always going to be a good thing. So yeah, I will try and remember to link their videos down below so that you can watch them if you are scared. There really is nothing to worry about with a smear test, and hopefully those videos you will find useful. It is really important, obviously. A smear test, I don't want to say it's unpleasant, it's just different, but it literally takes a matter of minutes and it could save your life, which I'm sure we all want. I've got some facts and figures now, so the bit of paper is back. So it says these are cervical cancer facts from Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust, I believe. It's part of their campaign anyway. So if you don't know, Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust is the UK's leading cervical cancer charity. It provides information and support to anyone affected and campaigns for excellence in cervical cancer treatment, care and prevention. Its national helpline is free and confidential. Simply call 0808 802 8000. Alternatively, you can visit their website www.joestrust.org.uk, where you will find plenty of information. Every day 9 women are diagnosed with cervical cancer in the UK and 2 women will lose their lives. Almost all cases of cervical cancer are caused by HPV. That is why it is important to get regularly screened and get vaccinated if you are offered it to help protect against HPV infection. Smear tests save thousands of lives a year, or around 7 in 10 cases of cervical cancer. Across the UK, 1 in 3 people do not attend when invited for a smear test. The most common symptom is bleeding in between periods or after sex. Other symptoms include postmenopausal bleeding, unusual discharge, unexplained pain between hip bones and pain during sex. Chances are it isn't cervical cancer, but it's best to see your GP if you're experiencing any of those symptoms. Joe's Cervical Cancer Trust have information and support about all things HPV, cervical screening and cervical cancer. No question is too big or too small. Through raising awareness of cervical screening, spreading important information about the HPV vaccine and calling on government to take action, we can make cervical cancer be the first cancer in history that we have eliminated. Together we can beat and end cervical cancer. Having the HPV vaccine if offered, regularly attending your smear tests, talking to friends and family and spreading awareness, and end that stigma of talking about smear tests. That brings me to the end of this video. I really hope you found it useful. I do want to talk more about various topics such as this in the future. But yeah, definitely check out Joe's Trust for all the information, and if you have been meaning to book your smear test or you have been putting it off, then please do book it. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll be back very soon. Bye bye.